Yes, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, ma'am.
We'll start the portion without wasting any more time. Yes. So we were studying about the next method, that is after the previous methods that we have learned, that is observational method, experimental method, and survey method. The other method through which we collect data in particular research or scientific inquiry or a psychological inquiry is through psychological testing. And we saw what is a psychological test, how, I mean, in whatever psychological concepts or variables they are important in. And we saw a few examples or a few topics which are tested in psychology. Then we saw the definition and we were talking about objectivity. So again, objectivity refers to the fact that if two or more researchers administer a psychological test on the same group of people, both of them would come up with more or less the same values for each person in the group. Objectivity means that all sources of bias are minimized and that personal or subjective ideas are eliminated. So, in terms of objectivity, bias and the errors that come from the personal judgment of the researcher is completely eliminated. In terms of objectivity, if subjectivity comes into play, then errors and biases are increased. That is why for getting a good result or for administering a good psychological test, we are ensuring objectivity. Now we will see how we can ensure objectivity of a particular test. In order for a psychological test to become an objective measure, it is essential that items should be worded in such a manner that they communicate the same meaning to different readers. I told you what items are. Items are the questions or the statements in any test that we have. Say if it is a memory test, then each item, each words that we have to remember might be called an item. If it is in a questionnaire form, like for depression, have you been feeling so sad for these many days? Such questions will be there in a test to uh, find out the level of depression in a person. So in that particular statement, that question, that particular tool, that statement or that question would become an item. So it depends on the particular tool or particular test that we are using. Number of items keeps on varying. So one method in which through which we can ensure objectivity is the wording of these items should be in a manner in such a way that even if I administer the test, even you administer the test, or any other outsider administer the test, it should be worded in a similar manner so that this can be applied to different participants in a similar manner. So even if, just a minute. Okay. Yeah. So, yeah, Grishma, did you join? Grishma, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So we were talking about objectivity and the methods used to say to ensure objectivity of our psychological test. The first method that we are talking about is it is essential that items should be worded in such a manner that they communicate the same meaning to different readers. What it means is the items, that is, in any psychological test, the questions or the statements in it are known as items. So these items should be worded. The words, the sentence structure should be same all throughout, and it should convey the same meaning to anyone who reads it, to me, to you, to the person who administers it, to the participant also, it should mean or it should give the same meaning. That is the first method or means by which we can ensure objectivity. So the items should be worded in a manner that they communicate the same meaning to different readers. That is one method. Then the instructions to the test takers about how to answer the test items should be specified in advance. So if this is not done, let's imagine that the instructions are not given prior to the test, or the instructions are not written down in the particular test that we are using. So I am a researcher, imagine, and I have other fellow researchers. And to a set of participants, I give this questionnaire and I just don't give any instruction. I just wish them good morning and I just ask them, just fill in your personal information and just answer the questions given in the test. And some other researcher might explain what this test is about, how it is to be done, is there any time limit for this test, is there any specified response for this test? So that person might tell, okay, you can give yes or no responses to this question. You can opt any options from the given examples. You can write down your opinions on it, and such instructions might be given. So the instructions that I give and the instructions that the other researchers give might be totally different. And this will affect their the participants' responses also, right? That is why the instructions of the test should be decided before itself. Yes. And that is another method. So the first one was to set the wordings of the items correctly so that it gives the or it conveys the same meaning to different readers. Then the second one is about the instructions. Notice the first one is about the items. The second one is about the instructions that the researcher gives. Now, the procedure of administering the test, such as environmental conditions, time limit, mode of administration, should be spelled, and the procedure for scoring of the participants' responses need to be described. So initially we told about the items, then we told about the the instructions to be given. Then that is prior to the test. So we are administering the test while giving the instructions. Now during the test, what happens? Several environmental factors might influence this particular testing. So those factors might be controlled. Suppose if we are measuring the attention. Attention is a psychological variable, and we have certain different types of attention. We have sustained attention, selective attention, such and such kinds. So suppose we are trying to measure the attention span of a particular person, and we have a setting where there are lots of noises happening. So these factors might influence the attention of this particular person. So we'll get a biased result finally after the research, after conducting the test. So in order to remove those errors and biases, what we have to do is we can conduct it in a soundproof room. Is it not? Yes. So that is a way of controlling the environmental conditions. And that is one thing to take care. So this is we are talking about the procedure of the psychological test. First one was about the wording of the items. Second one was about the instructions. Third one is about the procedure of the test. What all factors can the procedure affect the procedure of the test? And we saw the environmental conditions in that. Then just a minute. Yes. We saw the time limit. How much time is given for this particular test? That should be decided. Then there is, if I give some 5 minutes and the other person give half an hour for completing the response of the test, then again our results will be biased in nature, right? If to complete a certain memory task, I am giving you just 5 minutes, but the other person who is conducting the test is giving another participant half an hour. That's not a fair play, right? So the time limit should be decided prior to the conduction of the test. Then environmental conditions is to be controlled at a certain level. Then the mode of administration should be spelled. Mode of administration means how is the test going, we are going to give the test, how are we going to give the test, that is in group or in.
All clear, right? The sound and the video? Okay. Okay. So we were talking about the procedure of administration. That is, the first one we saw the environmental conditions, then we saw the time limit, then we saw the mode of administration. Means is the test to be given to an individual person, only that person, or is it to be tested for a group of people? Is the test to be administered to a group of people at the same time? All those things are also decided. And the procedure for scoring of the participants' responses need to be described. Means we get certain responses from this person, right? And we have to score it. We have to, based on certain tests will have the scoring key. We'll look at that key and we'll score. This person got this score in this question. This person got this score in the other question. Similarly, we'll score it. Or different tests have different scoring methods. Might be given in that particular test itself. Otherwise, we'll see the lab manuals for these tests. Each test might have a lab manual. And from that, we'll get the scoring method also. So the type of scoring should also be described. Or if I am trying to score it in according to the numerical values and some other person is scoring it based on the quality of writing, based on how well the sentences are written and how well the responses are given, how neatly it has written. If it is, if that researcher is judging it in or interpreting the results in such a way, and I am interpreting it in terms of the numerical values, then again bias arises. Again, errors arises. So all these factors should be described earlier, or it should be already set. And we are not allowed to change these scoring methods or the administration methods or the instructions. Only if that is done in this particular manner, in this manner which is already described, then only we can ensure objectivity of a test. Understood. So which are the factors to be taken care of? The first one is the wording of the items. The second one is about the instructions to be given before the test. Then during the test, that is during administration of the test, we have to look into certain factors, that is environmental conditions, then time limit, the mode of administration, and also the scoring procedure. These are the factors to be taken care of. And if they are taken care of, then we can say that this is an objective test. This test ensures, or this particular psychological test ensures objectivity. So if I ask you a question in the examination, how can you ensure the objectivity of a psychological test? If you have such a question, then you have to write these things. The items have to be worded in such a manner that it means the same for everyone. Then the instructions, about the instructions you have to write. It should be set in advance. Then about the administration procedure, scoring procedure and all. Yes, understood?
Ma'am,
Yes.
when the participants interpret the questions in different manner, won't it create errors?
Yes, that is why we are wording it in such a manner. I told you the first point is we have to word it in such a manner that the people who read it, any reader, see the sentence, I'll read it again. In order for a psychological test to become an objective measure, it is essential that items should be worded in such a manner that they communicate the same meaning to different readers. Understood? So whoever be the reader is, if it is the researcher or the person who is giving us responses, to all the readers, it should mean the same thing. Understood? And if they have any doubt, they are supposed to ask the researcher. We can tell that prior to the research, if you don't understand any particular statement, you can ask us. Of course, the people's interpretation might vary. That is a fact, true. But we have to try and make those words or those questions in such a way that it would probably to a 99.9% mean the same to everyone. Understood?
Okay, ma'am.
Yes. So that is about objectivity. Now here, the construction of a test is a systematic process and involves certain steps. It involves detailed analysis of items and estimating reliability, validity, and norms of the whole test. So these three things, the reliability, validity, and norms. If you are going to do any research in any subject, whichever field you are going to take after your +2, these three things, they are very important in your research. And in whichever tools you use, whichever instruments you are using to measure anything and everything, you will have to ensure that it is reliable, it is valid, and it has appropriate norms. We have so many people waiting in the waiting room, but they are not from our class. I don't know why. Okay. So again, I'm repeating these three things, that is reliability, validity, and norms of a particular test is very important. So in order for a test to be objective and standardized and consistent, we have to ensure its reliability, validity, and norms. So we are going to learn what these three topics are. So before that, we have a sentence that the construction of a test is a systematic process and involves certain steps. So construction of a test, the steps in that, we don't have much, much to learn in depth about it, but just understand that there are certain steps to be completed. Just like we learned the steps of scientific inquiry, we also have certain steps to be completed in the construction of a test. In that, one of the important thing is ensuring the reliability, validity, and norms. And another thing is analysis of items. We write down the items which are to be included in the test. Then we ensure the reliability, validity, and norms of the whole test. Okay, so now we are talking about the construction of a test. Okay, and in the construction of the test is where this part comes, where we test the reliability, validity, and norms. If we have concluded that this particular test is reliable, it is valid, and there are appropriate norms for it, then only we can use it in real life application. Understood? Somewhat. Should I repeat? Once more? Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So what I'm telling is, when we construct a test, there is, suppose there is no existing test to measure the depression of a patient. Imagine it like that. So what we do is we think about it. We write down certain questions that they are likely to answer. Like for example, do you often feel low on most of the days? Do you feel very sad? Do you feel hopeless? Do you feel helpless? Similarly, such questions we would write down, and those form the what items of a test. Those form the items of a test. Then we test these three things, that is reliability, validity, norms. This is done after the analysis of items. We go through we write down all these items, we go through them, we analyze them, then we do the test, reliability, validity, and norms. We test for reliability, validity, and norms, and then we decide whether this is fit enough, this is standardized enough or not. We decide whether this particular test for depression can be applied all through the world, or all through India, or all through Kerala, or at least all through a particular district. Is it applicable or not? If it is not reliable, then we can use it. If it is not valid, then we can use it. If it doesn't have appropriate norms, then we can use it. So we have to make it reliable, valid, as well as with appropriate norms. You'll understand what this is about when we discuss each topic in person. Okay, we'll move on to reliability. Yes, the first one is reliability. So reliability of a test refers to the consistency of scores obtained by an individual on the same test on two different occasions. Like, I'll give you an example. So this is mainly the consistency of scores obtained by the participants. Okay, from the participants, do we get the same scores? Do we get consistent scores over time? That is being tested in reliability. Suppose we take 15 or suppose 30 number of participants in a study, and we are testing them today. We are giving a particular psychological test that we are trying to construct. So we have written down the items, we have developed the test, let it be in the questionnaire form, and I am handing over this particular test to the 30 participants today. And then I get a result, I score it and I keep it, I interpret it and I keep it. Now after maybe 2 weeks, I'm calling these 30 participants again and I'm giving the same test to them. And I'm supposed to get similar results, right? Because it is the same participant, it is the same test that I'm giving, and again it is the same researcher. Even if it is the same researcher, it doesn't matter. What matters is the test and the participants. Both of them are the same. So I am supposed to get the similar result as the last week. Understood? So if I get the similar result, then this particular test is reliable. Understood? That is how we find reliability. And we've learned two types of reliability here. There are several other methods, advanced methods to find reliability. But for our particular syllabus, these two are enough. And the first one is computing the test-retest reliability. Excuse me. Yeah, the test-retest reliability indicates the temporal stability. Note down these terms. I know you're new to them. So note down and learn this. Yes, test-retest reliability. What would that mean? We are testing once, then we are testing again. Similar to the example what I told you, that is, it measures or indicates the temporal stability, which means the stability of the test scores over time. That is one form of reliability. I give a test now and to the particular participant or a set of participants, and then I give the same test over time to the same set of participants. That is, if I'm excuse me, if I'm measuring some psychological variable, or if I'm testing something of these 30 participants today, then I am testing the same participants with the same test in some other day, and I should get the same result. If I get the same result, then I'm telling, or I'm concluding that I have already computed the test-retest reliability of this particular test, and it is found to be reliable. Understood? Yes. Then it is computed by finding out coefficient of correlation between the two sets of scores on the same set of persons. So how do we find the reliability? How do we find it is reliable? No, we have to score, and we have to find if the results are similar for 30 participants, right? And how do we, if there are 100 or thousands of participants, can we sit and count, or can we sit and match if the two sets of responses are similar or not? It is so much time consuming, right? So what we do is we find the correlation between them. Remember correlation? We try to find if the two variables are related or not. So if we find the correlation between the first set and the second set of responses, then we'll be able to find if they are similar or not. Understood? So in testing reliability of a psychological test, we can use the correlation method also. Okay, I'll explain it once more. So reliability is about the consistency of scores over time. So if the same participants are tested with the same set of questions or the same psychological test over time or at any other time period, then we have to get similar results. If only that happens, or if we get the similar results only, then we can say that this particular psychological test is reliable in nature. For that, we use two methods. That is, one is test retest reliability. In that, we test now and we retest later. And we find the correlation between this result and the next result. If they are correlated, then we can say that it is reliable. Okay, somewhat understood? Okay. Now, another method, the first one is test retest reliability. We also have split half reliability. Here what happens is, it gives an indication about the degree of internal consistency. Note those names, split half reliability used to indicate the degree of internal consistency. Note those bolded terms in your lecture notes. Okay, what does internal consistency mean? The degree of interrelationship or homogeneity among the items on a test such that they are consistent with one another and measuring the same thing of the test. Yes. So suppose I want to have a develop or construct a psychological test with almost 20 questions, 20 items. There are 20 items in the test that I am going to develop. So I am writing down these 20 items, and what I do is, in split half reliability, I split them into two halves. Not based on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not like that, but I'll separate in terms of some other ways such that the two halves will have equal amount. Like the main method that we use is odd even method, like 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, all such numbered items in one half, and 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 such numbers in the other half. So in split half reliability, what we do is we split the total number of items into two halves, mainly based on odd even method, that is 1, 3, 5, 7 one set, then 2, 4, 6, 8 the other set. And then we find the correlation coefficient between these two halves. Understood? In test retest reliability, what did we do? We tested once in the same participants and we gave the same test to the same participants but in a different period of time. And we found the correlation between the first test and the second test. And if they are correlated, then they are reliable. Then that test is reliable. Now in split half reliability, what did we do? We took the test items, suppose there were 20 items, then we divided it into two halves based on the odd even method, and the 1, 3, 5, 7 all those comes in one set or the one half. The 2, 4, 6, 8 such items comes in the second half, and together we find the correlation. That is, the responses to these questions are there, right, from the participants. So we find the correlation between this particular set and the other particular set. I mean the two halves. The correlation between the first half and the second half will give us a score. And that correlation coefficient will decide if this is valid or not. We have computer techniques to find out the correlation. We don't have to sit and compute the correlation. Okay. We can, within 1 or 2 clicks, we can find out the correlation of so many different items. That is how we usually do the split half reliability. This is based on the assumption that items of a test, if they are from the same domain, should correlate with each other. If they are from different domains, then they would not. For finding out the internal consistency, the test is divided into two equal halves employing odd even method, and correlation is found between the scores of odd and even items. So I told you this is for finding the internal consistency, which means that in a psychological test, like we told about the example of depression, right? When we are developing a test on depression, we have certain 20 items based on depression. They would be questions that helps us to find if there is any depression or not for this particular participant. Yes or no? Yes. Yes. Okay. So in that, we have to find if there is any internal consistency for it. For example, if this particular thing measures depression or not, if the items, the 20 items are related to each other or not. I gave you two examples. I feel helpless, I feel hopeless. Helplessness and hopelessness are some of the factors that might influence depression. So helpless and hopeless are somewhat similar in nature, right? So if we find a correlation between them, it would be correlated. Yes or no? Yes. So that is how we find the internal consistency. The internal consistency means internal to those items, internal to that particular test. In a particular test, we have certain number of items, and those items together, do they have a consistency? Do they form the elements of the same domain or the same topic or the same psychological variable that we are studying? Here we have depression. So these hopelessness, helplessness, feeling low, all these factors would be correlated. They would be internally consistent. And that is what we find in split half reliability. So I'll talk about it once more. In reliability, we find the consistency of scores. That is, if an individual, if they are given the same test on two different occasions, then it should give similar results. That is what we call reliability. And we have two methods, two main methods that we have to study in this section. That is test retest reliability and also split half reliability. Test retest reliability is, from the name itself you can write, the participants are given the same test at one period of time, then they are retested, that is the same participants are given the same test at some other point of time, and their scores are taken. The correlation between these first test scores and the second test scores are calculated. Okay, the correlation is found out, and the correlation coefficient would tell us if this test is reliable or not. Or we can use another method called split half reliability. In split half reliability, we divide it into two halves based on, mainly we use odd even method. That is, odd numbered item scores will be there. Or the participants responses we take, the 1 3 5 7, their scores we take, those form one half, and the 2 4 6 8, those scores we take, and that forms the other half. And then we find the correlation between this half and the other half. If it is correlated, then we can tell that this has internal consistency, which means it is reliable. Finally, internal consistency means the items in a particular test has similarities to each other, or it is trying to find out the same domain. It is from the same domain. Understood somewhat? Yes? Okay. Now I think we are out of time. Yes, we will continue at 5 o'clock. Okay, thank you then.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.